In this story, I'm going to tell you how my husband used our marriage passwords, routines, our planning hour, to quietly reroute our mortgage and give his mother access to our house. But he didn't expect me to notice. I quietly compiled every alert, text, and signature, called a family dinner, projected the evidence on the dining room wall, and watched our whole life rearrange itself. My name is Eleanor. I am 34, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. For 7 years my life had been built around Jonas and the house we renovated together. A narrow, stubbornly charming house perched on a steep, tree-lined street near downtown, with a porch that caught just enough late afternoon light to make the crooked string of bulbs we hung every winter look intentional. We met in grad school, moved into the house the summer we got married, and kept the same small rituals until they felt like vows. Saturday morning coffee at the little cafe 2 blocks away. A Wednesday night we called our planning hour where we talked about budgets and travel, and the small logistics that let two lives sync, and the nightly ritual of me making a pot of tea while Jonas washed the dinner dishes and sang off-key to whatever record he'd fallen in love with that month. Those rituals stitched us together. They were the seams I used to check if everything still held. Our history had a few heavy stitches. His job lost the year after we married when I kept our insurance paperless and taught extra semester hours, and my mother's diagnosis when Jonas learned how to soothe a wailing pulse in hospital corridors. We made lists on yellow legal pads: pay off the mortgage, adopt a dog, move to the coast in 5 years. Jonas liked numbers. He liked the order of a spreadsheet, the small certainties of dates and due balances. I liked the big picture, the narrative of our life, the architecture of our days. So when he asked to keep the household banking, I said yes the way you say yes to someone who has earned the right to decide where the furniture goes. For years it worked. I trusted him with everything because trust felt like an affordance we could spend. He kept our passwords, took the calls about leaking roofs, handled family logistics with my sister Cara and his mother, June, because they preferred asking him directly. He was the one people turned to when numbers were involved. When a small unpaid notice slipped under our door one October morning, I assumed Jonas would clear it up. A curt voicemail from the mortgage company I found on his phone I assumed he would handle. When Cara texted me in a flurry, she couldn't believe Jonas had offered our living room for her family's winter visit. Without asking, Jonas smiled and said he had it covered. At night, as I poured tea, he would tell me not to worry. The ritual of the planning hour began to get shorter. Jonas kept checking his phone, excusing himself with a quick text that would turn into a long conversation. I shrugged at first. Life is messy. We had plans. He said he was sorting things out. The cracks didn't appear all at once. They arrived as small, bewildering failures of expectation: a redirected bank alert, a new contact number for the mortgage company listed under someone else's name, a beneficiary change filed without my signature. Each one seemed survivable, until they stacked. The first undeniable fracture happened the holiday I had been leaning on for weeks: our family dinner that was meant to be a balm after months of rain and missed opportunities to gather. The dining room smelled of roasted vegetables and orange zest. I had made Jonas's favorite pie because familiar flavors breed calm. We were supposed to patch things, not tear them. Instead, the meal became a revelation. Jonas, calm and sure, told everyone we were refinancing to help his mother tap a reverse mortgage to pay assisted living bills, and showed the paperwork like a shepherd, presenting a difficult but noble solution. He had signed documents granting June access to joint accounts, and even filed a beneficiary update with the mortgage company, all without telling me. I remember the feeling of the floor shifting under a rug you thought had been nailed down. I confronted him in the kitchen with printed bank statements and a copy of the signature page, proof in ink and pixels, and he smiled as if he'd offered a kindness that needed no defense. He said he had done what was necessary and that I was overreacting. He blamed my inability to see the sacrifice. He wrapped his actions in the language of family duty. It felt like violation because it was. He had used the intimacy of our marriage as a tool to move money and permissions under the guise of helping family. He invoked our shared past, sacrifices we had made, as a justification for unilateral decision-making. I tried to stay reasonable. Passing a divorce right then would have meant losing half the house and a life that wasn't only ours, but also threaded into the fabric of community. Students who relied on me, neighbors who baked me biscuits, and expected me at the annual street cleanup, friends who had lent us tools during the renovation. So I began to collect evidence quietly. Transaction alerts I no longer received, text messages where Jonas reassured his mother about withdrawals, a scanned beneficiary form showing the change. The deeper I dug, the more I saw a pattern where Jonas's sense of familial duty swallowed our joint plans. I tried to reason. We had a planning hour for everything, why not for this? He said yes in words when I suggested a repayment plan and joint approval for future transfers, but in practice he deflected. When I asked for confirmation emails and receipts, he promised them later. When later never came, I invited the family into a conversation I thought would anchor them to truth. I set up a Sunday lunch, arranged for Kara and a cousin of Jonas's to be present, and asked calmly how anyone thought he could reassign accounts like that. The response was an exercise in the pressure family applies like steam to change form without notice. June looked frail and hurt and begged for patience. She had always been the woman who bought my baking at holidays, and once left me a note thanking me for using the guest room. That note, small and harmless, felt weaponized. Kara, with a brow I'd seen creased since we were kids, said she trusted Jonas because he was good with money. A cousin whispered that family must stick together. Every gathering after that became a twist in a play where I didn't know my lines. A mortgage company notice arrived naming Jonas's mother as the contact for servicing changes. That official letter felt like a guillotine blade dropping on our shared life. At a family meeting that might have been a turning point, the room folded into an accusation, me as selfish, me as an obstacle to a noble family rescue. I lost composure. I said I felt betrayed and excluded from decisions that affected our shared life. The silence that followed was a silence designed to wound. Some relatives looked at me as though I had ruptured a communal fabric they had invested in. For a week I slept on the couch, avoiding the charged nights and the way Jonas's face could turn polite and unreadable. I logged into accounts I had always trusted him to manage and found that certain alerts had been redirected. That was when I knew negotiation with him alone would not work. I had to change the terms of our relationship. I chose quiet coordination over spectacle. Late nights were spent compiling a dossier of evidence, bank summaries with unexplained transfers, transactional alerts that no longer reached my email, the beneficiary form with its tidy, unfamiliar date and small personal proofs. The hurried apology note I later found tucked in the recipe book he had once given me, a note that said, in a hand I knew, "I'm sorry, I'll fix this. Please don't tell." I saved email threads where Jonas assured lenders that I had been informed when I had not been, calendar invites that put him at the mortgage company on dates when I was in lecture halls, and text conversations where he promised repayments he never executed. I did not tell everyone. I told only 2 people at first, my sister Kara and an older neighbor who had watched our renovations and lent me a can of paint when we needed it. They agreed to attend a mediated family meeting, which felt like bringing witnesses into a courtroom where family stories would be the testimony. On the day I chose for the meeting, I prepared like a teacher preparing a final lecture. I made the meal Jonas loved, whole roasted chicken, lemon and thyme, because routines calm people and I wanted everyone's heads clear. When the family sat, I projected the documentation onto the dining room wall, bank statements, timestamps, texts. Evidence, I had decided, would be the language no one could rearrange with a good story. Jonas went for righteous anger first. He accused me of cruelty for airing family problems. He said he'd only been helping. Then he told the lie I'd prepared to catch. He claimed he'd told me about the beneficiary update at our planning hour. I pulled up the calendar invite, time-stamped for that exact hour, and held my phone up so everyone could see. I had accepted the invitation because I was teaching. My phone showed a note I had made to myself for the lecture I gave that evening. The contradiction hung there, like a spotlight catching the truth. My neighbor, who had seen me packing lecture notes in the kitchen during that hour for years, said so aloud. Kara, who had been defensive, asked to see the texts. The room shifted. The mediator pointed out legal steps we could take to reverse the unauthorized changes and recommended temporary account restrictions while we clarified ownership. The victory was not the collapse of Jonas, but the collapse of the story that had been used to justify him. People could no longer frame his actions as simple sacrifice. The aftermath was slow and structural. We entered mediation and set formal boundaries. joint notifications for account changes, a trust arrangement for family assistance, and a legal amendment requiring both signatures for beneficiary shifts. I moved my primary accounts to an institution I controlled and set up automatic copies of transaction alerts to my email and to Kara's. Jonas began financial counseling and had to meet with a legal advisor about the beneficiary changes. Family lines hardened. Some relatives pulled away, others offered quiet apologies, and June called later to say she felt pressured and was sorry. I didn't want humiliation served up like justice. What I wanted was stability and a workable new normal that protected the house and my dignity. A month later I found, tucked inside that same old recipe book Jonas had given me years ago, a small folded note. It was hurried, an apology and a promise to fix things, written in his hand. He'd left it there the day after the family meeting but never spoke of it. That private apology, hidden among flour-stained pages and recipes we'd tried together, felt like both proof of remorse and the last intimate thing between us. We didn't divorce immediately. We separated our financial lives and rebuilt our routines. I still teach, still keep my planning hour now an independent review, and I started saving into an account that no one else touches. Trust was not restored, it had to be rebuilt carefully and partly replaced by rules. The betrayal reshaped what intimacy meant in our marriage and required boundaries I wished I'd asked for sooner. I reclaimed the house, my place in the family, and a clearer sense of the future. But there are evenings when the porch lights blink crookedly, and I reach for a hand that is no longer steadied by the same patterns. Those small gestures of loss are the ones that linger the longest.